that actually that there's a desire to move the insurance companies out of the picture. In reality, there's a lot of challenges to that, and so at what point are we really saying what some of us here are saying, which is, yeah, the insurance companies do need to step aside so that we can provide affordable health care for all.
Right. Well, and like I said, it could be single payer, it could be universal. There's a lot of ways that one can start to figure out what it looks like. It is let me just say this, it is a big issue, is what I'm really getting at. And what I said, not everybody in the government, I said everybody in the Democratic caucus. So there's no Republicans in the Democratic caucus. Recognition. Now, I will say this, in all fairness, that we have a big tent, right? As Democrats, we got folks that are very progressive. You got the other extreme. And so what we'll have to do is also figure out how we can move legislation once we understand what that looks like. And all I'm saying is that it needs to be a collaborative process. It's not just the Senate or the Assembly trying to figure it out and then saying, here's what we think it should be. That is part of the process, but we have to get out in the communities. We have to make our way from Eureka down to San Diego and really take input. That's what's meaningful. We do that on general plans. So if we're going to really, and we got to hear the pros and the cons of a lot of different points of view. But at the end of the day, what I'm saying is, it is that important. We need to embark on that journey.
Go ahead. Assemblyman, thanks for coming this morning. I'd like to thank you for being a co-signer on Christina Garcia's letter to the governor last month. Appreciate that very much. So SB 700, it's an energy storage bill that will be coming before your committee next week, I believe. It's a very good bill. I mean, it really complements the whole push for 100% renewables. You can't have renewables without energy storage. So I support that.
The bill, we've looked at the bill for the last couple of weeks. We had another storage bill earlier in the year. Part of my challenge on some of the bills that are dealing with subsidies is ultimately what are the ratepayers going to get back as a result of those subsidies going into these programs. When the leadership around AB 700 came to talk to me, they were talking about companies. They were talking about what they needed for the company to provide. I wasn't hearing anything about ratepayers. I wasn't hearing anything about what it's going to do to green the grid. I wasn't hearing anything about those components that I think are also very important. And since there's going to be taxpayer subsidy going in, and the focus is on going into my company so I can provide a certain service, and with low-income communities, it's still a question on the customer side of the meter, how they're going to afford to do that. Even if you take, even if you say it's $16,000 to put in a storage unit at your home, and will provide through subsidy $10,000, a lot of poor families can't come up with $6,000 to feel the difference. So the PUC is going to be going through, so we have a lot of questions. Not that it's a bad thing, because I do agree with you. There is, in terms of long term, we need to look at storage and maybe need to move aggressively at some point to expand the marketplace. The PUC is having a study done that will be done next year, and what we're basically saying is that we'd like to take a look at that, the results of that study, and then work with the author to be able to navigate through what the bill should look like going forward. We haven't made any, well, I'm not telling you anything that we haven't already told the author. So we're probably going to work with the author, make it a 2-year bill, and continue to figure out how all of these things navigate and knit together so that we're doing this in a responsible way. And from my vantage point, at the end of the day, how does it ultimately benefit the ratepayer, and many in that category, low income ratepayers.
Dancing Water, you got a question? Thank you.
Yes. Senator Sheila Kuehl, when she was Senator had the Lewin Group do a study on a single payer and how they would pay for it. And it did pass both houses at that time, even for California. Went to the governor's desk when he vetoed it. Why don't we review what their study has shown, how is this bill can be paid for, so we can get single payer. We do need the insurance companies out of the decision making with our health care. They're making six figures, in salary, while we're going bankrupt when you get sick, if you have to go to the hospital.
Right. No, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think that should have been happening in the Senate, because it puts a lot of pressure on, and I'm talking about current fiscal analysis that would suggest that annually the cost would be in excess of $330 million. So I don't know about you, but it would be, I don't want to be irresponsible in the process of trying to do the right thing. And because I had tough decisions like this for.
I just know, I went to the hospital recently for a few hours. My bill came to $6,000. I was there because I was dizzy. They could have given me a motion sickness tablet and sent me home. My bill came to $6,000 on one end. Then you have the doctor's bill. That's about another $1,000. We can't afford this. We're going bankrupt. We have to get this insurance company out. We're paying money to them. Let's take the money we're paying to them and to get single payer started.
No, look, again, in what you said, there are a lot of different pieces. I also hear that it sounds like the position that you probably could have done a better job of determining what
if we had single payer, we would not have this debt. My husband went to the hospital for the same thing at a previous time. His bill came to $30,000. We can pay for single payer simply by what we're paying to the insurance company. Let's get it started.
And that's what I said we're going to do. We're going to get it.
We don't have time to wait. We're going bankrupt.
Well, I can't expand on the answer that I've already given on that. I hear what you're saying, and we are going to move this session to develop a process that allows us to engage the community and come up with some answers. And if it means going back, and I'm not familiar with Sheila Fuel's study, so.
Please get with her. The study has been done. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to get the ball rolling.
Right, but remember that Sheila Fuel was in the Senate, or
yes, but they figured it out. And it went to the governor's desk. It was passed in the Senate and the Assembly, went to the governor's desk where Republican governors vetoed it.
Right.
We could have had it.
I hear what you're saying.
Go ahead. Yes.
I was invited by Rabbi Jonathan Klein today, and I wanted to ask about housing. My concern is AB 1505 and 1506, repeal of Costa-Hawkins, and also the inclusionary zoning bill 1505. And I'm just wondering, what is the movement on those two bills in the Assembly? I haven't heard that anything's happening with either one.
Yeah, I know the one, I guess, the Hawkins bill, it has stalled. It's in, I don't know if it was in appropriations or in committee, but it's not moving this year. I think there were some concerns about I don't remember all the specifics of the bill because it never made its way to me. It didn't get to the floor, so I didn't have a chance to really get up on it. But it was a Richard Bloom bill, I think.
Bloom, Bonta, and Jim.
Yeah,
yes.
and I think that they'll probably look to bring it back, but I think there were some just some issues with it that couldn't get it going this year.
And then
Jeanette?
the 1505,
I'm sorry.
1505 was the.
I don't remember the
You don't know.
specifics.
Jeanette?
Well, I want to say something nice, Chris.
Of course, as I can't ask her to discuss that.
I really want to thank you for the leadership you've taken on legislation to benefit foster youth. When we first started working with foster kids, we heard from our foster youth, when a child is removed from the custody of their parents, the state becomes their parents. That's what happens. And this young woman who had a terrible series of experience said to me, you know, we don't think you've been very good parents to us. I think you've been a good parent to these kids, so thank you.
She's next, she's been holding her hand up.
Yes, go ahead. Joe?
Thanks, Dale. I have two questions about the Housing Accountability Act. It's, was it SB 35, to strengthen the inclusion of the local housing elements. And kind of what's your take on that one, as well as the one that's the Homes and Job Act? So, SB 2.
Let me, if you give me a little bit more on it, because just know that a lot of these bills, if they're not coming in my committee, I'm only going to see them if they make their way to the floor. And that's when I get engaged and really spend time, unless I'm getting lobbied on it, and I don't. I can tell you just generally on housing that I know David Chu and others, and others have been very aggressive that they're trying to tie this issue of housing and funding to cap and trade. And certainly we support that. I think that the idea is one, to elevate the issue with the governor so that he can, because he's not yet put the kind of energy into affordable housing that we think that he needs to. And so this is sort of a broad comment to all housing initiatives that by bringing housing into the cap and trade discussion, which the governor wants really bad, that there may be an opportunity to leverage that for the benefit of either signing some of these bills or looking at additional funding that could make its way into the budget. There was $500 million that he was talking about last year that he was going to put into housing, but he wanted it tied to buy right, which no one was very comfortable with, and so he took it out unless he got his buy right. So sometimes he has a tendency, if I don't get what I want, then screw you. And having said that, he's been a great governor, and he's done a great job. But there are elements of his style of negotiating unless you have him like me, with your back against the wall. There's a tendency to find the door and he'll not deal with the issue. And we were able to hold his feet to the fire on redevelopment because he wanted to end a lawsuit. And by ending the lawsuit, he had to come up with a strategy that helped reconcile a lot of the outstanding issues that cities were experiencing, including Pasadena. So we were able to leverage that. And I think that's exactly what we're trying to do now. It's what's slowing the process down because the negotiations are now kind of, according to the pro tem, are not moving as briskly because our House is throwing a lot of issues like that on the table to make sure now that we have the governor's attention, we're going to do what we can to leverage his issue for ours. So that's a broader.
Have you followed the Palmer fix? Where do you stand on that?
Bill, I'm not on that yet.
All right, it's almost 10. We try to end. I believe it's someone Ping in San Francisco has just introduced a bill that would require that body camera video be a public record rather than be exempt from public records under the criminal investigation exemption. A lot of us fought hard in Pasadena to get body cameras, but we're seeing the openness that and transparency that we hope they would bring subverted by local districts classifying them as criminal evidence and therefore exempt from public disclosure. Would you consider joining him and sponsoring that bill?
Well, it's certainly, like you just said, he just introduced it, so I'd have to get together with him and actually read the bill, but I do believe that transparency is very important. And I think that, you know, in that process, there have been some really horrendous situations that have occurred, officer-involved shooting, and it goes beyond explanation on what was going on. And even when someone was holding a camera, like he's holding a camera and filming it, there was some way that the person was exonerated. There's the other, well, it's not so much that, there's a due process piece in there that has to be weighed. I'm not saying disproportionately weighed, but it has to be weighed. But in terms of transparency and the public's right to information, if it's written and it's something that can be released, there are, within your city council, there are certain guidelines on which information can be released. But in terms of, so I have to kind of understand how all that balances, but the short answer is transparency is very important. The public's right to know is very important.
Quick follow-up to your question. As the chair of the Black Caucus in the Assembly, as I understand it, would you urge them to support this bill? I know you're not on public safety, but...
Well, as I said, we have Reggie Jones Sawyer, who is the chair of public safety. So I would probably look to Reggie as someone who would advise us and give us a presentation on the merits of it and what he would recommend the caucus do. I wouldn't just unilaterally do it. If I can't stand here today and say I've read the bill and here's where I would stand, then I wouldn't be able to do the same for the caucus. But I will say that we have, we also have a very interesting Black caucus too, because you have some very progressive members and you have some members that are less than progressive. So, you know, even within the Black caucus, there is you know, we have to wrestle with some of these issues, but we do have a member who is on public safety. Dr. Weber and Joe Sawyer are both on budget sub 5, which is funding for public safety. And so we have some really advocates in that regard. Some important places.
All right, Chris pushed us over the Thank you, Chris. Chris Holden. The meeting is adjourned. If Chris wants to stay around, if people want to talk to him, that's up to him. But we're officially adjourned. See you in 2 weeks.
Talk about some good issues. Back soon.
Don't forget to pay your bills.